Hello there, YouTube. It's been a while. I have had quite a bad week of migraines, but I'm on the mend now, and I'm finally in receipt of proper home care now, which it's been an upturn for me. I finally now understand what it's like to receive proper professional home care, and what I can say is, when you're in receipt of proper professional home care, you understand just how negligent carers are. I don't blame them entirely. I'm fairly sure that most of the carers simply never had any proper training. But the care company that previously had my contract before I basically fired them, they were out and out negligent to the point of endangering their clients. So it's not even close to good enough. But I'm now having proper professional care, and when I describe to my friends that work in care the things that my current care packet is including, they say, "Oh yeah, that's standard." And then I go, "I had no idea that's standard. My previous carers never did that." And they went, "Really?" It's things like that. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I want to discuss media, not just books, but media in general, because there have been discussions on the value of media, the intrinsic value of media, and particularly on what is known as trash books. Now, there is no such thing as trash books unless the book is literally of no value. This is trash. It has, we would call it rubbish. Trash is an American word, but still, this is trash. I use tissue. Old wrappers. It has no value at all. It goes in the bin. That's trash. A book is never trash unless it has no value. If you are reading the book and enjoying it, it is not trash. GarbAugust, this reading event dedicated to trash, is a waste of everyone's time. By definition. If you... plane flying overhead. That's going to be picked up by the camera, and it's going to make this incredibly difficult to filter now. So that you guys understand just how bad the filtering is, I'm going to play the next 10 seconds of this video without any audio filtering. This is what the audio of my video sounds like if I don't do any filtering. All of the background clicking and whirring, this is what it would normally sound like. I'm going to go back to filtering my video. Okay, so this is what it would normally sound like. Yeah, I thought I'd just go ahead and show you what the audio is like normally. This is why I need a new camera. The audio is terrible. That's why my previous video sounded so awful. I had to go through so many different editing programs to try and get the audio correct that I ended up trying various different styles, and it ended up sounding like my voice had gone through a voice changer. In some of my videos, my voice has pitched down to such a degree that it sounds like I've gone through a voice changer. My voice is noticeably lower in some of them. I actually ended up pitching it down just to try and get rid of some of the whirring. It sounds like I've gone through a voice changer. It's because I literally did. It sounds awful. But anyway, that aside. So, trash media. What is trash media? Well, it's worthless media. That's what it is. Now, it is true that media is all on a spectrum. That definitely does exist. If you get a well-crafted novel, and you get the scrawlings of a 5-year-old who is just writing their first story. Now, that's valuable to them. That's their creativity. No one's ever going to tell that 5-year-old they shouldn't write the story. But the story of them talking to a dog in the street, that's not a valuable story to anyone else. That is not going to mean anything to anyone else except possibly their parents, who might find it adorable. It's not going to be a publishable novel. No one's going to find that entertaining. It's unlikely to have any real literary merit. So why would we claim that it's all subjective? It's clearly not. A novel is going to have objective markers to it. We all know, for example, that writings like 50 Shades of Grey, regardless of how popular they are, we know that they're crap. We know that they are badly written smut. So is that trash writing? Well, yes. Yes, it is. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could devote the month to reading things like 50 Shades of Grey, but why would you want to waste your time on that? Now, what I'm going to say is that what a lot of people mean when they say that they want to read trash is they want to read what is base. Now, base books are not trash. They are simply appealing to base instincts. Now, 50 Shades of Grey does this as well. It's just bad. It's bad. 50 Shades of Grey is a bad book because it has bad characters, it has bad writing, bad prose, bad narrative, and it's also a bad erotic book. The sex scenes are unrealistic, the fetish scenes are badly researched, and the BDSM is out and out dangerous. As someone who has actually done some of the BDSM scenes that it depicts in those books and done them safely, I can say quite definitely that the way they are depicted in those books, if you did it that way, it would actively be dangerous. There is no indication that the writer of 50 Shades of Grey researched or has tried BDSM properly, because there is no aftercare given of any kind. There is no description of what is known as the substate or subspace, which is where the person who has engaged in the BDSM routine has taken that beating, so to speak, is rushed with adrenaline and endorphins from the repeated strikes from bats or whips or whatever it is, or floggers. When you're built up slowly over time, you fill with adrenaline, and it's like a drug high. That person is effectively completely incapable. They need to be looked after. It's like being on drugs. So there's no indication that anyone looks after anyone else after that. They just leave each other. This is the problem with these books. No one actually bothers to write them properly. When they're written properly, there's nothing wrong with them. If you want to read an erotica book, there's nothing wrong with reading erotica, if that's what you want to read. That's not trash. That's just reading erotica because you want to be titillated. If you wanted to read a book about BDSM because you want to feel turned on, then fair enough, you read erotica. Just read good, well-written erotica. Don't read 50 Shades of Grey. Now, exploitation is fine. There's nothing wrong with exploitation as a genre. I mean, exploitation as a thing in the world is very wrong, obviously. We're talking about media, so. But exploitation as a genre is fine. Exploitation film is a good tradition of creating films that push the boundaries. Exploitation in books pushes boundaries as well. And we need these things. They are often considered lowbrow, they're often considered to be brash and even uncouth, but that doesn't make them less valuable. That just means that they are approaching the media from a different perspective. So, if we want to read something that is either erotica or that is generally uncouth, that is particularly violent or very gory, then that's fine. That doesn't make it high literature. That doesn't make it what would be considered highbrow, but it doesn't make it trash. It's not rubbish. It doesn't belong in a bin. Now that's the problem that I have with saying it's trash. It's not trash. It's not rubbish. Saying it's trash is devaluing it. And this is the problem I have with the language choice. What you are saying is, this is trash literature, Therefore, it is less valuable, it is less important. The language choice you're making is important. You are assigning a hierarchy. High literature, trash. Not valuable, valuable. No, different values. Base value and high value, even that is still a hierarchy. Right? No. Complex value, base value. And again, I'm still placing that in a hierarchy. But complex is still, whilst it's still above, it's above in a different way. It's not better, it's just above in a different way. A base value is something that we all have. We all are fascinated by gore. We're all fascinated by sex. We all want to experience pornography and horror films and things like that. Even if we're put off by them, we're still fascinated by them. We still want to look at them at least once or twice. Now, if we look at them too much, then it can develop into an addiction, and they can be bad for us. Moderation is the key. It's why high literature and high art are considered to be enriching, because it's very difficult to develop an addiction to these things. They don't trip the endorphins in the brain in quite the same way. So we engage with them differently. So there are different forms of art that we can approach differently. But that doesn't make any kind of art trash. And this is a problem I have with GarbAugust and the approach that a lot of people are having. So I want to change the approach that we're having here. I disavow GarbAugust completely. I think it is a fundamentally broken, shitty way of approaching books. I will not approach a book and call it trash unless I genuinely consider it to lack value. A trash book is a book that isn't worth reading. That is what trash is. It is worthy of a bin bag. It is worthy of not existing. So that's my position. What you're saying when you say there is trash literature is there is literature not worth reading and there is literature worth reading. Now, I consider media to fall into three broad categories. There is exploitation media, or base media, crude literature, crude media, that is designed to titillate and hit the very base emotions. That would be things that are erotic, that are even pornographic. That would be things that are extreme baseline. That would be your gore fest, horror films, those kinds of things. Now they can be, there's a scale on this. You've got your hardcore pornography, and then you've got erotica novels. It's all still in the same tier, but it's not the same kind of thing. If you get my meaning. An erotica novel and hardcore pornography, not quite the same, but they're in the same tier. A horror film can be a psychological horror that's just tweaking at the sense of fear. A horror novel can tweak at various different fears, or it can just be full-blown gore, and it can be the worst kind of torture porn films that we've had out there. You need to balance it right. If it goes too far, it crosses the line into trash, into being worthless. If it tries to go too far, it no longer fascinates, and it just becomes try-hard. It is a delicate balance, I think. That is still worthwhile. I have no issue with this. Next is mass consumption art. This is designed to entertain, and this is still worthwhile. This stuff is designed to push boundaries, and I think this is very valuable. This is where a lot of my favourite stuff is. I enjoy horror. I enjoy a lot of exploitation films. I enjoy a lot of harsh action and A lot of Tarantino's films, for example, would go in this low category, what a lot of people consider exploitation films. And that's not because they're less worthwhile. The low category is not low because it's lesser. It's just because it's more base. So this medium, this is where you'd stick things like the MCU films. This is mass consumption, mid-tier entertainment. And the main driving force behind this is just to entertain. Entertainment is valuable. We all want to be entertained. The purpose of entertainment is to keep you sane. It has been shown through psychological studies that human beings without entertainment go nuts. We can't survive without entertainment. If you're locked in a room without entertainment, you quickly go insane, you get bored, and you go loopy. It's why it's actually considered a cruel and unusual punishment for human beings to be locked in a cell without access to any form of entertainment. You actually can't lock a prisoner up without books or a television or something like that to keep them entertained. It's not allowed. Under most legal systems, under international law, you have to provide at least minimal entertainment, and you have to provide at least minimal social interaction. Full-blown solitary confinement is illegal under international law, and full-blown isolation with no creative or entertainment outlets is illegal under international law. And there's good reason. It will drive a person insane. We need entertainment. Entertainment's valuable. It's a part of what we need to enrich us as people. So let's not write it off. Just entertainment. That's fine. Then there's what's considered highbrow art. Highbrow art is taking an aspect of human society, the human condition, and is purposely staring at it. It's trying to say something about it. This can be something like grief, for example. It can be something like morality. It could be religion. It's often religion. Frankly, I consider religion to be a done topic. I consider so-called highbrow literature about religion to be rather trite and pathetic, but that's because I consider religion to be rather trite and pathetic. Highbrow contemplative novels or works about religion, where they go really contemplative and delve deep about religion, and yet still don't come out on the side of atheism, I consider to be failures. Because if they've delved into religion for 900 pages and still haven't considered that magical sky daddy isn't real, what the hell are they doing? So a lot of this so-called highbrow literature, I question whether it's really highbrow. Are they actually contemplating these subjects? Because I have read some really in-depth contemplative works where they're contemplating the nature of God, and at no point did they contemplate whether he was there. The nature of God, and never once did they contemplate the fact that God is self-contradictory. Now, contemplating the nature of morality, or the nature of the human mind, or the nature of grief or death, or the cyclical situations within history. Those are all highbrow situations. Those are all things that you would have in the highbrow upper echelons of literature, of film and television. These can be tackled in any media, so it can be in film, it can be in TV, it can be in video games as well. Any media can tackle these things. It's not specific to literature. But just because you're doing that doesn't make you better. Just because a book is tackling these things, just because it has something to say on the human condition, that doesn't make you better than anything else. Just because a book is a contemplative work on the nature of morality does not make you better than the fantasy epic that is just a fun romp about dragons. If you're not as well written, you're not as good. And you know what? The really base horror novel that is just an exploration about a murderer killing a bunch of people in a cabin. If the murderer killing a bunch of people in the cabin is more exciting, more thrilling, and the characters are more realistic, they're more believable, they have better dynamics, it's paced better, it's written better, the descriptions are more captivating, the prose is more beautiful, that is a better book. That so-called trash book about the psycho killer stalking the 6 teenagers in the cabin. Yeah, those 6 teenagers have really complex backgrounds, and they're really interesting characters. The dynamics between them are all really interesting. The killer is a deeply troubled psychological study. Right? He's this traumatized person who's stalking these people. He's really hard to figure out. It's not highbrow. It is not a study into the inner workings of the traumatized mind. It's not that. Because the book doesn't focus on that. But it's still a good book. And that's the thing. And that book doesn't exist. That book doesn't exist. Well, it might exist. There might be a book like that. But that's the point. You could have a book that is a guy sitting on a bench just contemplating the nature of existence and thinking about the inequities of the world, and that'll be highbrow literature. And it could be shit. It could be badly written, load of old trite. And people will praise it because it's highbrow literature. The problem with the way people think about writing, about categorizing these things, is it's a pretentious bullshit. And people will throw things into categories for no good reason. There are 3 broad categories. There are contemplative works, there are entertaining works, and there are base works. Those are the only 3 categories. That's all we've ever had. Trash is not one of them. Trash is any one of those 3 that failed to do one of those things. That's what trash is. If you are trying to write a book and it didn't succeed, it's trash. If you say this is trash and I liked it, then it wasn't fucking trash. Unless you are so powerfully stupid that you can't recognise trash and you read crap and don't know what you're reading. That's the only way that can be trash and you can still enjoy it, is if you have no sense of taste. That you have the artistic critiquing ability of a food critic who can't discern what food flies in their face, who can sit there eating the worst fast food and treat it as if they're eating the best food on the planet. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. I'm deeply troubled and annoyed by the way people are treating GarbAugust and the trash argument, because it's just another reiteration of the literary fiction argument. There is no such thing as literary fiction. Literary fiction doesn't exist. Literary fiction and genre fiction were great fiction, were memorable, important fiction, were not very good fiction, we don't matter. We're the fiction everyone will forget about in 50 years. This is the fiction that gets to be remembered. The important shit the snobby people talk about, that's just people pondering about questions of humanity and morality and religion. And that's what gets remembered. And all the shit over here that's sci-fi and horror and fantasy that's actually interesting, that gets forgotten because it's got genres in it. That was the old way of categorizing it. We've shifted a bit now. Instead of literary and genre fiction, we've moved some of the genres up here, and now we call this fiction. We still have literary fiction and genre fiction, but we allow this, and we've taken some of the genres out, and we call it trash. And this we've made most horror, some sci-fi, most romance goes down here, some sci-fi, all of dystopian, some fantasy goes down here. We've split them. And that's the way it's going so far. And this is trash, and we don't get to talk about this. And this is worthwhile. It's the same fucking thing. No, we don't get to do this anymore. Stop being pretentious little cunts and deciding that some of the fiction's worthwhile and some of it's not. Stop gatekeeping. It's pathetic and it's arrogant. Just admit that what you're doing is saying that there is good fiction and bad fiction. And the bad fiction doesn't get to be remembered, even though you're reading it and enjoying it. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you're reading it and enjoying it, it's not bad fiction. You are being internally inconsistent. How can you read it, enjoy it, like it, keep it on your shelf and claim it's bad and not worthy of being remembered? At least when I will openly say there is good fiction and bad fiction, but the bad fiction I don't fucking keep. I don't keep the bad fiction on my shelf. I don't claim it's going to be remembered. I would say, that's bad fiction. Throw it on the fucking fire and forget it was ever written. It's not fucking worth it. No, I don't think it should be preserved. No, I don't think we should keep it for the future generations. It's not worth the paper it was fucking written on. No, we should not preserve it for future generations. No, I'm not for keeping it. Yes, I think book burning is bad. Yes, I read Fahrenheit 451. No, I don't think we should keep 50 Shades of fucking Grey for future generations. No, I'm not burning it because I think it's offensive. I'm burning it because it's a piece of fucking shit. Because it's crap. It's not worth reading. It's a waste of your finite life. I'm not burning it because I find it offensive. If you want to read it, read it. I'm not actually going to burn it. I don't actually care that much. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. I'm not going to make you burn it. I don't actually agree with burning books. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if we were to get rid of every copy of 50 Shades of Grey, if they were all destroyed tomorrow, I wouldn't weep over them. I don't care to preserve it. I'm not going to go out of my way to destroy it. What I'm saying is, in the world of preservation, in the world of media consumption, I am never going to suggest that you read it because I consider it to be worthless. It is trash. And when I say trash, I mean actual trash. Not what these people seem to mean, which is thing I like but have deemed somehow not worthy of respect. Can we please stop the gatekeeping? That's all I'm going to say on this for now. Bye.